This episode is brought to you by Jira. Jira is the only project management tool you need to plan and track work across any team. So if you're a team of developers, Jira better connects you with teams like marketing and design, so you have all the information you need in one place. Plus, their AI helps you knock out the small stuff so you can focus on delivering your best work. Get started on your next big idea today in Jira.
Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. I'm really excited about today's guest, Matt Johnston, coming from Philadelphia. And he's a seasoned entrepreneur, business strategist, and he's the pioneer behind Reframe. It's a revolutionary business methodology that transforms and elevates brands to new heights. He's got a fantastic marketing background, video, consulting. We'll hear all about it. And so, Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. And we connected through Podmatch. And tell people your story, your background, what you do, and we'll get into it.
Ugh, I'm boring. I hate talking about myself. Let's talk about you, Chris. Yeah, so I've had a lot of different lives. The sort of abridged version is I started in the arts. I'm 42 now. I spent my 20s in New York City directing plays. So I did that for like almost a decade because that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to direct theater. That was like my calling. I dropped myself in the middle of New York City and I tried to figure it out. So it was fun. It was a fun way to spend my 20s. So I did that. And eventually I didn't want to live that life anymore. So I went back. I got a master's in journalism and I started on this big journalism career. I produced TV news for a couple of years. And then I started building a sort of online video expertise slowly because I moved out of TV. I was one of the first video producers at Business Insider, and then I eventually escalated to be news editor of Business Insider, and this is before y'all have heard of Business Insider, I'm sure, and we got bought while I was there, so it was much smaller. So I was there for a couple of years, helped build Business Insider during that time. And then I was poached by New York Magazine. I built their video program from scratch, which was a lot of fun. And then Men's Health and Women's Health, I moved over there and I ran their video, reimagined their teams. And then for a couple of years, I went to Now This. They're the biggest Facebook video news publisher. And I built 3 lifestyle channels there. So that's like what I did before everything here. That's where a lot of Reframe came from because Reframe is essentially about transforming the way that your brand shows up through messaging to distinguish yourself through your competitors. And those years at Business Insider and like running these high volume organic editorial teams, I was essentially framing and reframing language constantly to optimize it for like maximum attention and clicks. And that's where it started from. So the journalism background did that for me. I built like a big video and marketing agency, Guide Social. We had 17 Shark Tank clients. That was cool. And not doing much with that anymore. Mostly now I just do consulting and coaching programs, courses, and things like that. I'm just teaching people more how to reframe their business these days. So that's the 5-minute version.
Yeah, interesting. And so we have a lot to talk about because you have a lot of entrepreneurial business experience. And one thing is, this whole idea with brands and marketing. And so talk to the audience about what prompted you to develop the Reframe concept and how's it transformed the businesses you worked with?
I guess what prompted me was essentially, I tell a couple stories like this in the book that's coming out. Really just doom scrolling through social media and just seeing just so much crap. I've become I'm sure that Gen Z would call me an old curmudgeon, but I talk about something in the book a lot called what I call the Instagram effect, which is essentially that the social media has a lot of good things that it does for us, but the negatives of it I find are pretty pronounced. And the biggest negative of social media in general is that obviously we're all trying to be like everybody else. And since we're all trying to be like everybody else, everybody ends up in the middle. And when everybody ends up in the middle, especially from a business standpoint, nobody's going to win because you can't win in the middle. And this goes back to psychology. My favorite business book of all time is, if you can call it a business book, it's a light book, really, How to Win Friends and Influence People, like by Dale Carnegie, written 100 years ago. And his whole thing that he just talks about over and over again, the book is simple, really. It's really about empathy. Essentially, it's like you need to put yourself in the other person's shoes. You need to see what they're seeing. And you have to realize that human nature is that we are hard to crave validation and belonging and to be seen. And so if you want people to like you, and if you want to influence people, you need to give them that validation, that being seen. You need to listen more than you talk, those kinds of things. Like that's like the whole book in a nutshell. And I think that we've seen that. If Dale Carnegie was alive now, he would be saying the same thing as me. I think that Instagram and TikTok and all these social media platforms have caused something of an epidemic of sameness. And with business, you see it all the time. You see it, Chris. Like, you go in Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, and like every single business is saying the same things all the time. And it's very difficult to know what they do, who they help, what results they deliver, what their product is half the time. And that's what we see on social media, but this goes over to their websites. I go to so many, there's consulting clients or leads come in or whatever, or somebody asks me about one of theirs, go to their website. It's always the same. I can't tell what you do. I can't tell who you help. I can't tell why you're different or unique. And my largest skill, I've always said, is being able to frame the way that we show up in the world and the way that we show up online. And back in the journalism days, it was about maximizing it for clicks. And in the business days, it's about maximizing it for profit and market share due to more exposure. You need to be differentiated. You need to get the hell out of being the same as everybody else, because you don't know what else to do and you're worried what people will think of you. And you need to like bravely move into differentiation, even though it's scary and even though it's not going to feel comfortable all the time. So that's the epidemic that I'm trying to fix.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite interesting in this idea of sameness and everybody trying to copy each other, but it's the people that really stand out. So one way to stand out is talking about polarizing. I'll name Trump, but he's good at polarizing. But talk about love me or hate me, the profitable art of polarizing your audience.
Yeah, there is so much science on this. This is a key part of the Reframe Method, right? So the Reframe Method, like, you take yourself through what I call the seed system, which is specificity, empathy, elevate, and division. So D is division. So this is, you need to dare to polarize. You can, like, there's so many examples of the power of polarization, and there's so many examples of polarization not being necessarily a negative or derogatory thing. Trump is the obvious example, because he's villainized because he tried to be the villain, but then he was so incredibly specific with the way that he talked to a specific group of people and fed them and validated their values, that it didn't just make them passively interested in them. It made them like feverishly in love with him because he shared their values, right? And basically, I don't need the people that are interested in gay marriage. I don't need the people who are pro-choice. Like, screw you guys. I don't even care. I'm just going to like completely go over here. So obviously that's like the extreme, and there's all sorts of other things with that. In business, though, nobody stands for anything, right? Nobody ever polarizes. But it's incredibly powerful. And there's all sorts of science behind this. We're hardwired to seek people with our values. Our brain creates shortcuts in our minds based on what we're going to choose, depending on what we have seen or heard from different brands. We just want easy choices, and we want to be aligned with people who have the same values as us. So everybody's in the middle and they don't want to offend anybody. They don't want to go too far one way. And I'm not saying even political polarization. That's not what I'm talking about. It's not the only way to polarize. It's just mostly the way that we talk about it. But I think Apple's a great example. Apple is the most valuable company in the world, and they are also one of the most polarizing companies in the world. I think that if you just want to look at one extreme polarization example from Apple, if you really need to see like the best company in the world, arguably polarizing to a huge extent, just look at that Justin Long and what's his name ad from the early 2000s. Do you remember that ad where you had the PC guy and the Mac guy on the white background? Do you remember that ad, Chris, or no?
No, I don't remember.
Okay,
No.
really super hyper, mega famous ad. So you had this, it was a full white background, just like it always is with Apple. And there were just two people there. It was the cool, chill guy who was smart, but like he was cool. And he was played by Justin Long, who got famous after that. And then somebody else, I don't remember what his name is, but he was like a stuffy, like overweight, like short glasses, like disheveled guy. So that he played the PC while Justin Long, cool guy, played the Mac. And it was all about them. They would have a conversation back and forth about a couple like different things, short conversations where it was very clear that Mac was the cool option where, listen, it doesn't need to be difficult. This can be easy. And then there was PC, which is everything's complicated and it's disorganized and it's just old and out of touch. And they did 60 some odd of these commercials and it won tons of awards and it drove massive revenue for Apple. But it pissed people off like crazy. I mean, there are rabid PC owners across the world, obviously. Millions and millions of people just want to own PCs, and they had Windows before. And obviously, Apple didn't have the market share at that time. Everybody had a PC back then. They didn't have a Mac. They were trying to break into that and become less niche. And if you just looked at threads and forums, incredibly polarizing. People hated Apple, hated them. And, you're going to say that we're stuffy. You're going to say that we're out of touch. You're going to say that we don't know what's going on. Screw you guys. And Apple was saying, okay, fine. You guys are never going to buy from us. You guys who want things to be difficult, you want to tinker with your computer, you want to replace stuff. You're never going to be our people anyway. There's way more people out there who aspire to be like the cool, handsome 26-year-old dude who just does his thing. All this computer stuff it's easy. I'm just trying to live my life. And what Apple did was they basically drew a line in the sand and said, you choosing to be a PC owner or a Mac owner wasn't just what computer you bought, it was your identity. And they were saying like, listen, you stuffy, out of touch people, like you're not going to be Apple people. And you like cool people who want to be like attractive and get girls or guys or whatever, and you want things to be easy, seamless, no frustration. You don't want to know what's going on inside. You just want it to work. Those will be our customers, right? So they were trying to draw a line in the sand and convert all the people in the middle who just used computers, but they weren't like hardcore enthusiasts, because obviously everybody was going to have a computer soon. And it was extremely polarizing. The internet wasn't around much in those days, but there was all sorts of stuff. And that's just the beginning of it with Apple. Apple has been extremely polarizing throughout their entire history. Like their whole ethos, the whole way that they don't let you touch anything in the computer. They started like essentially like soldering everything in together so you couldn't make replacements on things. These things are incredibly controversial to people that know computers, and they don't care. They just don't care because they're just going to convert everybody else who just wants that same experience and wants to align with that identity. So you don't have to be Donald Trump and have these like political, emotional viewpoints to polarize people. You can just basically find the values that you can really push on, and don't be afraid to essentially rule people out.
Very fascinating. And I love this idea. Once you find your tribe and you basically segment people out, you start to really shine and flourish. As we come to the end, tell people how to contact you, follow you, because you have a lot of experience and you're on social media. And what's your key 2-3 minutes, last minute parting words?
I think the only parting words I have really is to, if you've listened to this and you've had it and this interested you at all, you should really think about being brave and thinking about what you can take a stand for. That's not enough. You have to transform the whole way you show up in the world. But I think that courage comes first with this stuff. But I think the main thing is, I have a whole book on this coming out called Reframe. Just go to reframeit.io. You can pre-order it and get in there. And there's all sorts of juicy bonuses I'm going to be giving people on pre-orders.
Yeah,
That's the place to go.
awesome. And for all the audience out there, let's thank Matt for coming onto the show, talking about polarization, specificity. Of course, we'll have him on the show again to talk more about other key business marketing insights. And all of his links will be in the show notes. And with that, thanks so much for coming onto the podcast.
Thanks, Chris.